My sister moved into my apartment for a week and tried to kick me out of my own bedroom. She forgot whose name was on the lease. When my younger sister Emma called me crying on a rainy Tuesday night, I answered without thinking. That was my first mistake. Emma had always had a talent for making every problem sound like the end of the world. Growing up, she'd cry over failing a math quiz, losing a favorite sweater, or arguing with a boyfriend as if the universe itself had collapsed. Somehow, she always managed to convince someone else to clean up the mess afterward. Usually, that someone was me. We were only 3 years apart, but our lives couldn't have been more different. I was 29, worked as a financial analyst, paid my bills on time, and had spent nearly 6 years building enough savings to rent a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment downtown. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. Every chair, every lamp, every framed photo on the walls had been bought with money I'd earned. Emma, meanwhile, had bounced through 6 jobs in 4 years. Every manager was toxic. Every landlord was crazy. Every roommate was jealous. Nothing was ever her fault. Still, she was my sister. When she whispered through tears, "Jason kicked me out. I don't have anywhere else to go," I didn't hesitate. "You can stay with me." "Oh my God," she sobbed. "Thank you. Just 1 week. I promise. 1 week. I swear." If only promises meant something to Emma. The next afternoon, I took an early lunch so I could help her move in. When I pulled into my apartment parking lot, I froze. A 20-foot moving truck sat outside my building. I actually laughed. There was no way that truck belonged to Emma. Then I saw her climb out of the passenger seat. She waved enthusiastically. Perfect timing. My smile disappeared. "What's with the truck?" "Oh, this." She looked almost embarrassed. I packed more than I expected. The back door rolled open. My jaw practically hit the pavement. It wasn't luggage. It was an entire apartment. Boxes stacked from floor to ceiling. A sectional couch. A dining table. Bookshelves. A vanity mirror surrounded by lights. 3 clothing racks. 2 televisions. Kitchen appliances. Even a treadmill. I stared at her. "Emma." "What?" "You said 1 week." "I know. So why does it look like you're relocating a small country?" She laughed nervously. "It'll be easier than putting everything into storage. You're bringing all of that into my apartment?" "It's temporary." Temporary. Somehow that word made me ignore every alarm bell screaming inside my head. By the time the movers left, every empty corner of my apartment had disappeared. Boxes lined the hallway. Her plants filled every windowsill. Her clothes occupied half my guest room closet before she'd even unpacked. She stood in the middle of my living room with her hands on her hips. "This place has so much potential." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "Oh, don't take it personally." That sentence is almost always followed by something you should absolutely take personally. "The furniture layout feels cold." "I like it." "Well." She began dragging my coffee table across the floor. "What are you doing?" "I'm fixing it." "I didn't ask you to." "You'll thank me." Within 20 minutes, she'd completely rearranged my living room. My couch now blocked the balcony door. The television sat at an awkward angle. The reading chair I'd carefully positioned beside the window had somehow ended up facing a blank wall. She stepped back proudly. "There. It looked better before." She rolled her eyes. "You hate change." "No. I hate coming home to discover someone redesigned my apartment." "Our apartment." The words slipped out so casually that I almost thought I'd imagined them. "Our apartment? I mean, while I'm staying here." I forced a smile. "Right." But something about the way she'd said it bothered me. The first 3 days weren't terrible. Annoying? Absolutely. She left dishes in the sink, borrowed my clothes without asking, turned the thermostat into a battleground because she was always freezing. She stayed up until 2 in the morning watching reality TV at full volume. I kept reminding myself. 1 week. 7 days. I could survive 7 days. Then Saturday arrived. I unlocked my apartment after grocery shopping and immediately heard laughter. Lots of laughter. Voices I didn't recognize. When I walked into my living room, 6 strangers were sitting on my couch drinking wine. One couple was eating takeout at my dining table. Another woman was scrolling through Netflix using my account. Everyone turned to look at me. An awkward silence filled the room. Finally, one man smiled politely. "You must be the roommate." "Roommate?" Before I could answer, Emma walked out of the kitchen carrying a cheese platter. "There you are." I looked directly at her. "Who are these people?" "My friends." "You invited 6 people into my apartment?" She blinked. "I didn't think you'd mind." "You didn't ask." They were already nearby. One of the women smiled awkwardly. "Emma told us you guys split the rent." I looked back at my sister. She avoided eye contact. "You told them we split the rent?" She shrugged. "It was easier." "Easier than saying you're staying with your sister for a week? Why are you making this weird?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It is weird." She sighed dramatically. "You always have to embarrass me." Embarrass her? In my own apartment? I simply walked into my bedroom and shut the door. The laughter outside continued for another 4 hours. The next morning I confronted her over breakfast. No more guests without asking me. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Fine. And stop telling people this is your apartment." "I never said that." "You literally told them we split the rent." "Same difference." "No. It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She finally put her phone down. "You know what your problem is?" I folded my arms. "What?" "You always have to be in control." "I'm controlling because I don't want strangers in my apartment?" She smiled. "Exactly." I almost laughed. The mental gymnastics required to reach that conclusion deserved an Olympic medal. Monday morning I left for work. Everything seemed normal. When I returned 12 hours later, nothing was. The apartment smelled like fresh paint. Fresh paint. I immediately looked toward the hallway. One wall had changed from warm beige to dark green. Dark green. I stared in disbelief. Emma appeared carrying a paint roller. "Oh good. You're home. Did you paint my wall?" "It's an accent wall." "You painted my apartment." I wanted to make it feel cozier. Without asking. Without permission. Without even mentioning it. I couldn't believe it. "I have to pay for any damage when I move out." "It looks better." "That's not the point." She crossed her arms. "I don't know why you're yelling." "I'm yelling because you painted my wall." "You act like I committed a crime." "No." I pointed toward the wall. "You acted like this place belongs to you." For just a second, her expression changed. It wasn't guilt. It was annoyance. Like I was interrupting a plan. Then she smiled again. "You need to relax." That night I called our mother. I expected support. Instead she sighed. "She's going through a hard time. So she gets to repaint my apartment?" "It's only paint." "It's my apartment." "You've always been more responsible." There it was. The sentence I'd heard my entire life. You're more responsible. Translation: You're expected to sacrifice because Emma never will. What does that have to do with anything? It means you can be patient. I already am. It's only temporary. Everyone loved using that word. Temporary. Nobody ever had to live with the consequences except me. Over the next few days things became stranger. Packages addressed to Emma started arriving. Lots of them. New curtains. Kitchen decorations. Bathroom organizers. A new microwave. A coffee machine. I found receipts in the trash showing she'd spent nearly $3,000 decorating. $3,000. Who spends that kind of money for 1 week? Then she asked an even stranger question. What internet provider do you use? I looked up. Why? Just wondering. You already use my Wi-Fi. I know. She smiled. I was curious how long your contract lasts. The question sat in my head all evening. Contracts. Utilities. Furniture. Painting walls. Buying decorations. It didn't feel like someone staying temporarily. It felt like someone settling in. Friday evening, exactly 10 days after she'd moved in, I came home to find every cabinet in my kitchen reorganized. Nothing was where I'd left it. Coffee mugs had been moved. Plates replaced. Spices alphabetized. Even my medication had disappeared. I finally found it in a labeled plastic container. She smiled proudly. I organized everything. I can't find anything. You'll get used to it. Again. Those 4 words. You'll get used to it. She wasn't talking like a guest anymore. She was talking like someone who expected to stay. That night I couldn't sleep. Every little thing she'd done over the past week replayed in my head. The moving truck, painting walls, calling me her roommate, inviting strangers over, buying furniture, reorganizing my kitchen, receiving packages. Every single action pointed toward one terrifying conclusion. Emma had never planned to stay for 1 week. She had planned to move in permanently. I decided that Saturday morning we were going to have a very direct conversation. No excuses. No guilt trips. No manipulation. She was leaving. One way or another. I had no idea she'd already made her next move. And by the time I discovered it, she'd crossed a line I never imagined even she would dare to cross. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed everything that had happened over the past 10 days. The moving truck, the painted wall, the strangers in my living room, the packages, the way Emma kept saying, "You'll get used to it." None of those things sounded like someone who planned to leave after a week. They sounded like someone who was settling in. By Saturday morning I'd made up my mind. No more avoiding the conversation. She was leaving. I found Emma in the kitchen making herself an elaborate breakfast with groceries I'd paid for. She smiled when she saw me. "Morning. We need to talk." Her smile faded instantly. "That sounds serious." "It is." She sighed dramatically and sat at the kitchen island. "What now? You promised you'd stay 1 week." "I know. It's been 10 days. I lost track. You need to start packing." She stared at me for several seconds before laughing. "I thought you were joking." "I'm not. You'd seriously kick your own sister out?" "I wouldn't be kicking you out. I'd be asking you to keep the promise you made. I don't have anywhere else to go. You have mom and dad. They don't have enough space. They have 3 empty bedrooms. They're renovating. They're repainting 1 bathroom." She waved her hand dismissively. "Same thing." I rubbed my temples. "Emma, this arrangement isn't working. Because I painted 1 wall? No. Because I had friends over? No. Then what's the real issue?" I looked directly at her. "The real issue is that you keep acting like this apartment belongs to you." For the first time she looked annoyed. "I think you're exaggerating." "I really don't." She stood up so abruptly that the chair scraped across the floor. "I've been through one of the worst weeks of my life. And instead of supporting me, you're counting days on a calendar." "I supported you. You gave me a place to stay." "Exactly. And now you're throwing it in my face." I couldn't believe the conversation had somehow become about me being the bad guy. "I never said that." "You don't have to." She grabbed her phone and walked toward the guest room. "We'll talk later." Then she slammed the door. An hour later my phone started buzzing. First it was my mom. "Claire, your sister says you're trying to make her homeless." I nearly laughed. I asked her to move out because she promised she'd stay 1 week. She's vulnerable right now. So am I. She's family. So am I. Mom sighed. "You've always been independent." There it was again. The sentence I'd heard my entire life. You've always been independent. Translation: Emma gets sympathy. Claire gets responsibility. I don't understand why I'm being punished for that. No one's punishing you. It feels like it. You know how emotional Emma is. And you know how manipulative she can be. Silence. Mom didn't deny it. Instead, she changed the subject. "Just give her another month." "A month? It'll go by quickly." I almost dropped the phone. A month becomes 2 months. 2 months becomes 6. Don't be dramatic. I'm not. You'll regret damaging your relationship with your sister. I looked around my apartment. The green wall. Her boxes. Her decorations. My furniture shoved into corners. The relationship had already been damaged. I just wasn't the one damaging it. The next few days felt strange. Emma suddenly became unbelievably nice. She cleaned the kitchen. She cooked dinner. She even apologized for painting the wall. For a brief moment, I wondered if I judged her too harshly. Maybe she had finally realized she'd crossed the line. Then Wednesday evening happened. I got home from work earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Emma. No answer. I walked toward the hallway and stopped. My bedroom door was closed. That wasn't unusual. The locked doorknob was. I frowned. I tried the handle. Locked. I knocked. Emma. Silence. I knocked again. This time I heard movement. The door opened only a few inches. Emma smiled through the gap. Oh, you're home early. Why is my bedroom locked? I was organizing. For 3 hours? I wanted to surprise you. Move. She hesitated, then slowly stepped aside. The moment I walked inside, forgot how to breathe. Nothing looked familiar. My framed photos had disappeared. My bookshelves were empty. The bedding I bought last month had been replaced with hers. Her makeup covered my vanity. Her perfume bottles lined my dresser. My favorite reading chair was gone. The closet doors stood open. Every single hanger held Emma's clothes. Mine were nowhere in sight. I turned slowly. Where are my things? Oh. She smiled as if she'd forgotten to mention something. I switched the bedrooms. I stared at her. You what? The guest room is still nice. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because my brain refused to believe what I just heard. You moved into my bedroom? It gets better sunlight. My bedroom. You weren't using the extra space efficiently. I looked around in disbelief. My clothes. I packed them. My desk. I moved it. My personal documents. They're in boxes. You went through my things? I had to. I couldn't even process the level of entitlement. You touched everything I own. I improved the space. You invaded my privacy. She rolled her eyes. There you go again. There I go. What? Making everything about yourself. I actually felt my jaw drop. This is my bedroom. Our apartment. She corrected herself with a small smile. I mean, while I'm staying here. No. I pointed toward the hallway. Put everything back. I'm comfortable now. I don't care. It'll take forever. I don't care. You can sleep in the guest room. I stared at her. I am not sleeping in the guest. I tried the handle. Locked. I knocked. Emma. Silence. I knocked again. This time I heard movement. The door opened only a few inches. Emma smiled through the gap. Oh, you're home early. Why is my bedroom locked? I was organizing. For 3 hours? I wanted to surprise you. Move. She hesitated, then slowly stepped aside. The moment I walked inside, forgot how to breathe. Nothing looked familiar. My framed photos had disappeared. My bookshelves were empty. The bedding I bought last month had been replaced with hers. Her makeup covered my vanity. Her perfume bottles lined my dresser. My favorite reading chair was gone. The closet doors stood open. Every single hanger held Emma's clothes. Mine were nowhere in sight. I turned slowly. Where are my things? Oh. She smiled as if she'd forgotten to mention something. I switched the bedrooms. I stared at her. You what? The guest room is still nice. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because my brain refused to believe what I just heard. You moved into my bedroom? It gets better sunlight. My bedroom. You weren't using the extra space efficiently. I looked around in disbelief. My clothes. I packed them. My desk. I moved it. My personal documents. They're in boxes. You went through my things? I had to. I couldn't even process the level of entitlement. You touched everything I own. I improved the space. You invaded my privacy. She rolled her eyes. There you go again. There I go. What? Making everything about yourself. I actually felt my jaw drop. This is my bedroom. Our apartment. She corrected herself with a small smile. I mean, while I'm staying here. No. I pointed toward the hallway. Put everything back. I'm comfortable now. I don't care. It'll take forever. I don't care. You can sleep in the guest room. I stared at her. I am not sleeping in the guest. The second Emma smugly said, everything's going according to plan. I stopped arguing. That was exactly what she wanted. Instead I smiled. You're right, I said calmly. Let's not fight. Her expression softened, almost disappointed that I wasn't yelling. For the next week, I acted as if I'd accepted the situation. I slept in the guest room. I stopped complaining about her rearranging things. I even thanked her for cooking dinner a few times. Emma mistook my silence for surrender. She had no idea I was quietly preparing for the biggest lesson of her life. The first thing I did was call my landlord. "Hi, David. I have a strange question. Has anyone contacted you claiming to live in my apartment?" There was a long pause. "Actually, yes." My stomach dropped. "A woman named Emma called yesterday asking how to add herself to the lease." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I couldn't discuss the lease with anyone except the tenant." "So she isn't on it?" He laughed. "Not even close." Relief washed over me. Then David said something that made my blood boil. "She also asked what would happen if you moved out." I clenched my jaw. "I have no plans to move." I figured. That's why I thought the call was odd. That was all I needed to hear. The next few days I started collecting evidence. Every text where Emma admitted she was only supposed to stay for a week. Photos of the painted wall. Pictures of my belongings stuffed into the guest room. Security camera footage from the hallway showing movers bringing in all of her furniture. Messages from friends asking why Emma had told them she co-owned the apartment. I saved everything. I even asked my neighbors if they'd be willing to tell the truth if necessary. Every single one agreed. Apparently, Emma had introduced herself to several of them as the new tenant. One elderly neighbor laughed and said, "I wondered why she kept talking like she'd bought the place." Then came the final straw. On Friday afternoon, one of my co-workers sent me an Instagram story. It was Emma, standing in my living room with a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Finally settled into my new place. Fresh start. My apartment. My furniture. My rent." And she was telling the world it was hers. Over 50 people had already congratulated her. That night I didn't confront her. Instead I called my landlord again. "I think it's time." He sighed. "I'll meet you tomorrow morning." Saturday arrived. Emma thought I was working an extra shift. Instead, I spent the morning renting a small storage unit. Then I hired professional movers. At exactly 10 o'clock, David arrived with copies of my lease. 2 police officers stood beside him. Not because Emma was a criminal, but because we wanted to prevent any disturbance while removing someone who had no legal right to remain. I unlocked the apartment door. Music was blasting. Emma had invited 8 friends over for what she proudly called her housewarming brunch. The moment everyone saw me standing beside the landlord and 2 officers, the room fell silent. Emma frowned. "What are you doing?" I stepped aside. David held up the lease. "I'm the property manager." Emma's confident smile disappeared. "Okay. The only legal tenant in this apartment is Claire." She laughed nervously. "There must be some mistake." "There isn't. You can tell him I'm living here." I looked directly at her. "You were staying here for 1 week." She turned pale. One of her friends looked confused. "Wait, I thought you rented this place." Another friend asked, "Didn't you say your sister stayed with you occasionally?" Nobody spoke. Emma's face lost all its color. She looked at me. "Claire." I said nothing. David continued, "You've never been on the lease. You've never paid rent. You never had permission to make permanent changes. And today your permission to stay here has officially ended." One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, you'll need to gather your belongings." Emma finally exploded. She pointed at me. "She's lying." I calmly unlocked my phone. "Really?" I connected it to the television. One by one, screenshots appeared. Her message. "Can I stay for 1 week?" Another. "Thanks for letting me crash until next Friday." Then another. "Don't worry, I'll be gone before your neighbors even notice." The room was completely silent. Then came the security camera footage showing the moving truck. Then photos of my bedroom after she'd taken it over. Then screenshots of her telling people she owned the apartment. Finally, I played the voicemail she'd accidentally left me the night before. "I just need everyone to think it's my apartment until Claire gives up." Nobody said a word. One of her friends quietly picked up her purse. "I have to go." Another looked at Emma. "So, you've been lying to all of us?" Within 5 minutes, Every single guest had left. Not one of them defended her. The movers began carrying her furniture downstairs. Emma cried. She begged. She apologized. You can't do this to me. I looked at her calmly. I didn't do this. You did. No. You did it when you decided my kindness meant ownership. Our parents arrived halfway through. Mom immediately started yelling. What is wrong with you? I handed her my phone. Read the messages. She did. Then I showed her the voicemail. Then the lease. Then the landlord explained everything. Mom slowly looked at Emma. Is this true? Emma didn't answer. Dad asked quietly. You told everyone the apartment was yours? Silence. You tried to take your sister's bedroom? More silence. Finally, Emma whispered. I thought she'd eventually leave. Those 6 words changed everything. Even my parents couldn't defend that. Dad closed his eyes. We raised you better than this. Mom looked at me with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry. It was the first genuine apology I'd ever heard from her. By sunset, the apartment was quiet again. The painted wall would need to be fixed. The furniture had to be rearranged. My bedroom felt strange after being invaded, but it was mine again. A week later, I redecorated the entire apartment exactly how I wanted. No compromises. No guilt. No walking on eggshells. Just peace. Emma called dozens of times. I never answered. She sent long messages saying family should forgive family. I blocked every number she used. 6 months later, our parents visited for dinner. Dad looked around my apartment and smiled. It finally feels like you're home again. I smiled back. It always was. The only difference was that I'd finally stopped letting someone else make me feel like a guest in it. And that was the most satisfying part of all.